of time.
O'clock.
Well, hey everybody! It's Wednesday, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess.
it's the main show. It's the main show. We got the drinks rolling.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, I can't believe it. I found out that rum is really good with root beer.
Well, yeah.
I knew vodka worked. I knew the vodka worked.
Well, vodka works with pretty much everything.
But rum is even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna do this European murder case.
Yeah, this guy, I can't remember. I think one of you guys recommended this case because I had never heard of this dude. I kind of feel like maybe a lot of people haven't, and that may partially be because when he committed his crimes, it was right around the time I think that the Yorkshire Ripper was committing crimes as well, and I think that stole a lot of the spotlight. But yeah, this guy, technically a serial killer. He did murder 5 people. And a Scottish dude. And sort of a con man turned killer type of situation.
All right.
And he goes under, his birth name is Archibald Hall, but he also went under the name Roy Fontaine. We'll get into that, why he called himself that later. And later on, he is also called the Killer Butler or the Monster Butler. I've also seen him called that.
All right.
For reasons which will become clear as the story goes on.
All right.
This was, this dude, I kind of, like I said, every time I kind of get into these cases, they always kind of, I just go down all of these rabbit holes about all these people. This dude seemed... He just seemed like a cold-blooded, opportunistic... He just kind of had his eyes on the prize, and whoever got in the way, he was just going to eliminate them. You know what I mean?
So the sex wasn't the motive.
It did not seem like, no.
Sex wasn't even involved.
Not really, no.
Okay.
This mostly seemed like I said, like more an opportunistic kind of thing. Like people were just kind of obstacles.
Kind of like the way women poisoners work.
Yeah, interestingly, and I was listening to a podcast earlier on that I think is called, it's two British, it was like a British man and a British woman, and it was called The Poisoner's Cabinet, and they did a show about this guy, and they did kind of a similar thing to what we would do, but every single show that they do, whoever they do it about, they always have a cocktail that's kind of based on
they drink
or like loosely based on like loosely based on whatever the case is that they're talking about.
I swear to God, people, we didn't copy this from anybody. I don't know if anybody copies it from us or if it's just something that happens automatically.
I think it's just like a thing that you think of.
Yeah, let's just drink while we're doing the
most
show.
of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it does make things a lot funner and just kind of greases the wheels a little bit.
I don't remember anybody else doing it.
No, well, I mean, I think I don't remember if
when we started.
If we had been watching this when we started the show, but Beer and Board Games does that.
They drank, yeah.
Hence the name of the show.
I don't remember, were we watching Beer and Board Games before we started our show?
I don't really remember. I mean, they've been doing shit a long time, but I don't really remember when we started watching it.
I don't think so.
But
I remembered it. I remembered saying we need to drink on the show, kind of like a 70s talk show.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe we were going for.
Yeah. Which they didn't necessarily drink in your face, but you could tell they were drinking. They were putting a glass down behind with you. When the camera going on, like, oh, sorry. Maybe putting
having a little tipple there during the commercial break.
Yeah.
Whereas now people are just kind of But on this one they had like a theme cocktail. I guess this was the first time I'd ever heard them. And but they had like a themed cocktail going on. Woohoo! Mango is a member for 17 months. Flash bulbs.
Flash bulbs.
England in the final of the Euros. Happy days. Well, yeah. Okay, I don't follow that, so I don't know anything about that. But yeah, I'm glad you're happy about it. Tammy says, well, if you're going to sit around talking about horrible people or things, drinking helps. That's another thing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And I think, too, that I liked it because, like I said, it's kind of like... this, live streaming has gotten a lot easier for me over the years. But when we first started doing it back on episode 200, I was fucking terrified. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, what am I going to sit there and there's going to be big, long, awkward silences and shit like that. But yeah, like once I kind of got into it, I'm like, oh, this is like actually much easier.
They're easier to do them live too.
It is, yeah. It is kind of like, because you don't have to do all that.
Yeah, well,
troublesome editing later, and and you get like all the interaction like in real time, which I actually ended up enjoying like a lot more than I thought I would, because it's like really helpful. You have all this feedback like right away. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, so yeah, this dude seems a lot more like, I don't know. We'll get into it, but he does seem like in his motivations does seem kind of more like you said, like a poisoner.
Mass murderer.
Like a mass murderer, like somebody that is just like very coldly like eliminating people that they feel like are just in their way or are pissing them off somehow.
By the FBI crime book, to be a serial killer, you have to kill at least 3 people. The motive has to be sexual or a sexualized motive. If the motive isn't sexualized, because really what a serial killer is a serial rapist that's killing the victim. That's all it is. They can get pretty fucking bizarre. But if it's just murder for gain or politics, or it's just called mass murder.
Yeah, which this and the interesting thing about this dude too is that one, he was a con man pretty much his entire life, which we'll get into in a minute, but he didn't really start killing people until he was older, I think he was like in his early 50s.
Yeah, that's another problem.
And so there was that too, and like I said, it seemed like the span of his crimes, because like he killed 5 people, but it was in a relatively short time frame. It was just like a year or something like that, like in the late 70s.
Serial killers are usually start their activity around puberty. A lot of times starting on animals, but some of them are quite advanced. They'll kill the humans while they're still in their teens, and sometimes they'll stop, and then they'll pick back up again when they're a little older. I think Dahmer killed his first one when he's about 16, and then he stopped.
Yeah, I think he was a teenager
for many years, and then he started back up again. And then some of the other ones, McDuff, I think he killed his first one. He was about 14, I think, when he killed his first one. It was like a little 12 or 13-year-old girl. Because it's usually starts with the onset of puberty. It's part of their sexual drive. It's part of their sexual orientation. That's some fucked up shit.
It indeed is.
The LGBT community, they just look at, is it hetero or homo? No. Their sexual identity involves you dying. Yeah. Some hardcore shit.
I mean, thankfully, quite rare. Mm-hmm. But it does. They do really seem to have that proclivity, and I'm not really sure if it can be gotten out of them. Yeah. Like that kind of person.
Let's see them try to put that on that flag, LGBTQ S at the end, S.
Nobody wants to claim this.
See, that goes up there.
Nobody wants to claim
I don't guess they're not going to claim them.
Well, no. Why would they? It's like nobody wants to claim the murderers. Tom. It just
put them in there.
It seems like a weird thing to even suggest.
No, just...
But, so... But I was going to say something about this, else about this guy, too, is that the funny thing... I mean, it's not funny, because he killed, 5 people. But... in some ways, I was watching this other documentary about it, and some of the guys that kind of worked on the case, or there was even this old guy that had interviewed this man before he died. He's dead now, obviously, but he died in 2002 in prison. And he said if 5 people hadn't died, he's like, this almost seems like a black comedy, some of the shit that happened in this, just because... He was, I don't know if I want to say he was actually a good criminal or if he was an idiot. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm leaning toward idiot, but we'll see how that goes in a bit. I think he was one of those dudes that thought he was way better at shit than he actually was. He struck me as somebody like that. I will note also that he wrote 2 autobiographies. And he helped someone else write a book about him, too. And in 2005, there was gonna be a movie made about him with Malcolm McDowell playing him. Like Malcolm McDowell and the guy that was the screenwriter, who's I've got his name written down somewhere, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. They were shopping it around, like trying to get funding to make it. But it never came to fruition, sadly, because I think this actually would make a decent movie.
What year?
2005.
Okay. Yeah.
Malcolm McDowell was gonna play him, and I was like, man, now I kind of wish that I'd seen that. He's probably too old now, but
Yeah.
was he still alive? Right, Malcolm
I think
McDowell?
so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's still
so.
alive. But yeah, he wasn't too old back then because, like I said, Archibald Hall was in his 50s when all this was going on. But yeah, but sadly it never got made. But yeah, so this motherfucker wrote 2 autobiographies and co-authored, I think, like a 3rd autobiography, like about himself.
Yeah.
So you can tell he's
Yeah.
kind of full of himself a little bit.
Sounds like BTK.
Yeah, he's not as
It's like Raider.
yeah, he's not as warped
Yeah.
as BTK.
Yeah.
He just Archibald Hall just seemed like
He had that X factor.
yeah.
The Minotaur.
Yeah, that's some weird shit, you guys.
Yeah, he thought he was a Minotaur.
Or something. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that was.
Minotaur in panties.
That gave me a weird mental picture.
Yeah, imagine.
like an actual mental picture of
Yeah, he's
a minotaur with panties on.
panties and garters.
Yeah,
Yeah, down in the damn
strangely
hole.
hot.
Take
Not
a pic-
BTK, but
Doing doing his fucking sexy selfies. BTK was-
sexy selfies.
Yeah, fucking Charles Rader or fucking Dennis Rader was some fucking shit, man.
He's standing right there behind you.
Yeah,
like
he got it
right
right
right behind on your shoulder,
Yeah.
like right there.
Yeah.
We haven't had Dennis like give us any commentary about any of our
Yeah.
serial killers lately.
Don't listen to Tom. I just did a little photo shoot just to show everybody, that I was serious about my craft. It was just sensual, you know how it is. Just trying to let everybody know that I could feel for my victims, that I was role playing.
Thank you very much for that insight,
Yeah.
Dennis.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a bobblehead of H.H. Holmes back there too, but
We never
Tom,
use it.
Tom never does his voice because he's like, well, I don't really
We
know.
don't know what he sounds
we don't know what he sounded like.
Yeah.
Because that was before TV was invented.
Yeah.
Tammy said Malcolm is still alive, 81 years old. Yeah, I thought he was still alive. He's still looking pretty good too. Last time I saw him, of course, it's been probably a minute.
He's been an old man my whole life.
No, he wasn't. He was in A Clockwork Orange. He looked like a baby in that. He was in A Clockwork Orange and If, and yeah, he was in a bunch of stuff in the 70s where he looked like super young. But yeah, I love Malcolm McDowell. So that's why I'm kind of sad that this movie never got made, because I was like, I'm sure that would have been like really entertaining. But yeah, it never did, unfortunately. So do we have anything else we need to discuss before we get into
Not that I know of. Looks like everybody's here.
the
Well,
story
We gotta let enough people in there to start show.
of Phantom says I'd rather see the Michael Caine wig appear instead of BTK Insight. Just saying.
Man, I gotta dig that wig up. I don't know where that is.
But it's in that closet
Is it?
somewhere. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's just up on the top shelf.
I cut down on the drinking. I haven't been so loaded that I've been putting the wigs on like back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
I'll
taking
get around to
or
it, though.
taking your pants off.
Or taking my pants off.
or whatever.
Thirst trapping.
All kind of crazy shit
Yeah.
that's happened on the show. Although I kind of feel like you took your pants off.
I'm gonna take my pants off.
Not
at the
too
club.
long ago.
I'm gonna take my pants off.
You already did that, kind of.
Yeah, just drop them.
Just
I'm gonna take some. I'm gonna make some stripper pants with the Velcro. Be out there dancing, just pull my shit off. They would laugh. People would laugh.
Yeah, they probably
People would love it.
because they're like, yeah,
They know me.
That's exactly what Tom would do.
They know me.
That's some pants you can just rip right off.
Yeah. Show up with my fucking stripper pants.
And you can have some of your little sexy.
Oh, I had the gay
sexy
underwear on and
gay
everything.
underwear.
Yeah.
He got new ones.
Yeah, I got a bunch of new ones.
I think the red ones are my favorite. But
Yeah. They're sheer. You can see through them.
yeah,
Dennis would love them.
probably.
Dennis, all those are nice. Yeah. I got another pair. Zach, I got another pair that's 2 separate halves, a right leg and a left leg, and it just got one side wraps around your hip and the other side wraps around your hip. You put on one side at a time, and your junk just hangs.
Yeah, it just kind of hangs out.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like they're not really underwear in any meaningful sense.
Not underwear immediately. They give the effect of underwear.
But then it's just all.
But not really.
It's
yeah.
all just kind of hanging.
Yeah,
out
I got
there.
that shit off of Shein. They were like $3.
Yeah. They're super fun.
I had to try it out.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's like scrolling through, and I was just like, yeah, you might have to get those. Allison says, "Hey, all, it's been a while." Hey, yes, it has been. I honestly just popped in to say I came to see Tom drop his pants, so it looks like I'm on time.
See Tom what?
See Tom drop his pants. Yeah.
Oh, he's trying to give me a drop of pants.
It's a little early for that,
It's a
but
little early to
okay.
drop my
But
pants?
he's no, I guess not.
Yeah,
I guess it's not too early. See, he's got his gay underwear.
Yeah. Get my back arch game.
He's been practicing. The more we try to do that back arch, the more we admire Tom Hardy.
Yeah. Tom Hardy's got the best back arch in the business.
He really does.
That's
yeah.
how he got all those roles.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's all he had to do. He'd just like show up and do that, and nobody.
Yeah,
was
he's
like,
just
"Oh,
like
all right."
back arching.
And they're like, all right. Yeah, Allison says jock mail. Ooh, cheers, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the pair that doesn't have the fucking cup or the fake ass in the back of it.
Yeah.
I got two other ones that you could tell it's Chinese because it's got a big foam cup in the front, and I don't even fit in that shit. My shit goes off.
It goes off.
It's too small. Cup too small. They come out though.
Well, yeah.
They're just in
obviously you can
pockets.
Yeah. And it's got a fake ass on it too.
Yeah, it's got fake ass.
It's pretty funny. Oh yeah, I forgot also that Malcolm McDowell was in Caligula. That's right,
Yeah.
when he was young.
Yeah, porn movie basically.
Pornish.
Pornish.
Sure. But yeah, I was like I said, as far as when he rolls when he was young, obviously A Clockwork Orange because that's one of my favorite movies. But yeah, he plays somebody that's still in school in that, and he kind of pulls it off. You can tell he's probably in his 20s, I'd imagine. I don't know how old Malcolm McDowell was when he did Clockwork Orange. When did that come out? 1971.
20s, probably mid.
I think he was probably in his 20s.
Yeah. Okay,
But he was
mid-20s.
playing like
Probably about 24.
a high school kid or something. I mean, enough that like somebody came to his house and was like, "Hey, why aren't you at school?"
In the book, he's supposed to be 16.
Yeah, he's supposed to be much younger in the book. But I guess it's kind of hard to like do that kind of shit in movies. All right, so let's talk about this motherfucker here. This Scottish, I mean, like I said, technically serial killer, but I guess more mass murderer. Just because of the motive, I guess. So as I said, he was born Archibald Hall. And he was actually born in southwest Glasgow, in Scotland, obviously, in 1924. Now, I don't really know. There's not a huge amount about his childhood. There's some stuff from his autobiography, but he was kind of a bullshitter, so no one's really sure how much of that was true or not. Now, from everything that I could discern, though, he didn't grow up super poor or anything like that. I think it was just kind of a regular working to middle class kind of upbringing. Like, I think his dad was in the military and then became a postman later on, and he actually had 3 siblings. Now, the youngest of those siblings, whose name was Donald, who will come up later on in the story, was most likely the product of his mom fucking around on his dad. And evidently this was widely known at the time, even though his mom always told him, no, that's your actual real brother. But apparently she was fucking around with somebody when the dad was away in the army.
Yeah.
And so, and really, the weird thing is that Archibald was real close to his mom, and he never blamed her, but he hated he called him his half-brother his whole entire life. He hated his half-brother, like, with a fucking passion, like, his whole entire life. And like I said, he'll factor into the story somewhat later on.
Yeah. Having I actually saw some stats on that. That's actually real common to have children out of the brood, and some of them are not from the dad. There was like was somebody trying to do a study on it. And they thought that it was like pretty high. Like there was one town where it was like 30% of the babies weren't from the dad. That was somewhere up near Alaska, I think, somewhere. It's kind of weird.
That is kind of
30%. It was a small town.
Yeah.
So could have only taken a couple guys to do that.
Right.
You know, but I think it's more common than people think.
Yeah, I guess it probably would be.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, even though the mom like denied it all day long, evidently it was pretty common knowledge around town that you know, that was somebody else's kid. And you know, and Archibald, we'll just call him Archie. How about that? I don't want to say Archibald every time. Even though he went by Roy Fontaine later, so most people knew him as Roy like later on. But he didn't, like I said, he didn't seem to bear any ill will toward his mom for fucking around, but he really, really hated his half brother, as he always called him. So it seems like even though he had what appears to be just like a regular kind of so-so, but a little bit chaotic childhood, he one of the things that he was real, and I guess he maybe got this from his mom, was that his mom was always real dissatisfied with their lot in life. They weren't poor, but she always wanted something better. And that seemed like something that Archie very much inherited. Because from a very, very young age, he was basically like, well, I want the high life. He wants all the money and not so much fame, I guess, but he just wanted to be really wealthy. And he also seems to have figured out from a pretty young age that he's going to have to steal to get it because, you know, he doesn't want to have to work, and that doesn't usually make you rich anyway. So he figured out pretty young that he's like, well, I'm just going to get it by whatever means necessary. You know what I mean? Now, so from a pretty early age, too, he started kind of skipping school, and he got real into kind of going and seeing, like, variety shows, like comedians, musicians. And he was really into all of the adulation that they got and actors and stuff. And then later on, he would get real into Hollywood movies for the same reason. He really liked the fantasy of the beautiful people, these famous people, you know, in these beautiful surroundings and houses and jewels and all that kind of stuff. So he was really, really into that, like from a very young age.
So what era are we talking about? Not silver screen, right? Silver screen?
Yeah, he was born in 1924.
Okay, so silver screen.
Yeah.
In other words, fake as fuck.
Well, yeah.
L.A. at that time, the Hollywood area was a fucking... It had some rich areas, but it was mostly rich people living right alongside people in poverty. And all those a lot of those stars, especially came from poverty. They didn't come from anything. So, and the way they showed them, the way they showed American life in those movies... Oh, bullshit. Nobody lived like that unless you were ultra rich.
Well, I think that's what appealed to him, I guess, was like the fantasy of it. Whether or not he really thought it was attainable, I'm not entirely sure. But he did seem to set out from when he was a teenager. I'm gonna live like that. I'm gonna get all that money. Like kind of rise above his station in life. That seemed like his main goal throughout pretty much his entire life.
Even those stars who were able to attain that out of those movies, the girls only lasted 4 years on average. The guys a little bit longer. Most of them, their careers, they got washed up quick. Rags to riches and then back to rags.
Yeah, which I mean, in a lot of ways, it still happens. It was worse back then for sure. But yeah, you kind of still see it happen nowadays.
Cutie ass Louise Brooks, they chewed her up, spat her out in about 5 years. She ended up being an escort for the rest of her life. She's a prostitute. That's why she disappeared.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was quite common.
Yeah.
Because as I said, it was a lot more ruthless back then.
Yeah. She spent everything that every bit of money she made. They stole a lot of money back from her. They made her buy her own costumes and stupid shit. And by the time they got rid of her, she was already penniless. She became an escort.
And I mean, studios back then basically owned you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like they told you what to wear, what to say, what to do, and you couldn't do anything without their say-so, and they kept a tight lid on your image because you were just, you know, like a moneymaker to them.
Yeah.
So and they didn't have, you know, a lot of the protections back then. That was kind of one of the things we talked about this on the show that we did about Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
Actually, Boris Karloff was one of the first actors to get in on like help establishing the Screen Actors Guild, like the union.
Yeah, because of this.
Because of that kind of crap going on.
Studio heads considered basically all the girls, the young girls that come in, that they were all hoes, basically. And they kind of tempt them out like hoes. Here, you're going to go hang out with this millionaire guy. He wants to meet you. Okay. Turns out he paid to meet her. You know what I mean? That's just that's the kind of shit they did. And they knew that she'd sleep with him. It was a crooked business. Real crooked.
Yeah.
So they started all that shit to get some modicum of protection.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember who all else was in on it, but I know Boris Karloff was for sure.
Yeah. The dudes didn't get it as bad.
No.
Especially if they put in an amount of time and got a good name. But eventually, you know, eventually even Bela Lugosi and shit, he just ended up being a junkie, living off welfare.
Yeah.
In a little bitty house, working with red wood. Yeah.
Yep. Gotta get money somewhere. It's sad, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Boris Karloff was a lot luckier because his career kind of continued.
Yeah.
Until he was really old, but not so much for poor Bella.
Most people just burn through their money.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
You know, which I can kind of see because some of them came from nothing, and when somebody hands you all of this money,
they can't handle that money.
Yeah, you can't really handle it because you've never been taught to, and
Yeah.
you didn't. You never.
They just spend it.
Yeah, and you think that it's going to continue coming,
Yeah,
like it's never going to end. You know
and
what
they
I mean?
pissed it all away. They'd have nothing to show for it afterwards.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even own property. There was a whole industry of making them rent houses, and they were getting all that money right back out of them.
Yeah.
They were crooked, yeah. Real crooked.
But yeah, so whatever like the case was, Archie here really aspired to something greater. He wanted to be very wealthy, just like he saw movie stars, just the landed aristocracy in the UK, stuff like that. He wanted to live like that. And he figured out pretty early on that he was just going to have to steal to do it. So he basically started getting in trouble with the police from when he was a teenager. One of the earliest scams that he would do, starting when he was about 14 or 15 years old, was he would take, they had the little cans where like people collect for the Red Cross.
Yeah.
And he would just go around the streets and like collect money for the Red Cross, except he would take it all for himself. He did that like all the time.
The Red Cross scam, huh?
Yeah, he would do that like kind of crap all the time. And later on, he would do kind of switcheroos in like jewelry shops and like bringing in cheaper ones and switching them from Ritz. Yeah, he would do like stuff like that. So in 1941, when he was 17 years old, he actually went to prison for the first time. And this was for theft. Now, according to him, in his autobiography, he also mentioned that right around this same time period, when he was 16 or 17 years old, he was introduced to the ways of womanhood by this older woman who was like a divorced woman. I think her name was Anne Phillips. And so she kind of like taught him all about sex or whatever. I think he had like had sex before that, but she was kind of like a much older woman. And also she had money. She wasn't like aristocrat rich, but she owned her own business and she was doing all right for herself. Yeah. So I think like also the experience of hanging out with her and having her buy him things and stuff like that, like he really got a taste for the high life, I guess. Yeah, for a time. Okay. For a time, sure. So as it went on, he started doing kind of just regular con man shit, like confidence tricks. And he would kind of pose as different things. Like sometimes he would pose as an aristocrat or pose as an American that had all this money. Like I said, he would go into jewelry shops. That was one of his favorite things. And either he would have like a real cheap piece of jewelry and he would like say, oh, I'm buying this ring for... I think one time he dressed up like a sheik too. Like I heard. And he dressed up like a sheik, like that he had all this money. And he's like, I need a ring for one of my many wives or some shit like that. So he was like pulling this kind of crap all the time. And I guess he was pretty good at it. more or less. I mean, he did end up spending a lot of time in prison, like in and out. But I mean, some of the scams were successful, so I guess he was like okay at it. Now, he was also in a time where this was not okay to say out loud. He's pretty openly bisexual. He was married for a short time. I'm not really sure what his first wife's name was, but they were not married for very long. I don't know if she found out that he was bisexual and was like, yeah, I'm out of here, or if something else occurred. But yeah, he was married once, and as far as I know, that was the only time he was ever married. So he eventually made enough from all of his scams and burglaries to move to London in the 1940s. Now, at this point, because he was so into Hollywood films and the glamour of it all, he decided to change his name to Roy Fontaine. He actually named himself after Joan Fontaine, who he had seen in the Alfred Hitchcock film. Was that an Alfred Hitchcock film? Rebecca, based on the Daphne du Maurier novel. She didn't win an Oscar for that. I think she won some Oscars for other things, but yeah, that's a really good movie, by the way. So he changed his name to that and kind of put on a different persona. Now, he seemed to have been quite a hit in sort of the underground, gay scene in London at the time. Like, we're based around Soho and stuff like that. Obviously, in this era, late 1940s, we're talking, homosexuality was still very much illegal. And really, you got shit on by the cops and you got shit on by the public at large. So you really kind of had to keep your shit like locked down. But there were clubs in Soho, like underground clubs, where you could kind of go there and it was like pretty cool and you could like hang out. But, it's largely didn't like it. If you got caught, you got arrested. Now, later on in his autobiography, he said that he had had relationships with some kind of well-known men. One of them was Lord Boothby, and one of them was the playwright Terence Rattigan, although I will note that by the time that he made these claims, both of those guys were already dead, so it's not like they could confirm or deny this rumor. And again, I'll note that he's kind of known as this kind of a serial bullshitter.
He's probably bullshit.
And like he liked to exaggerate, and make himself seem like larger than life.
Yeah,
he was real.
He liked.
Yeah, and he was real flashy. Like they said, he was a real flashy dresser and stuff too.
Yeah,
because he wanted to be bigger than he was, I guess. So he was also really fascinated by all of the different gangs that controlled like different parts of London around this era, which kind of gave him a taste also of kind of like the criminal underworld, which I think he thought was kind of romantic.
He's going the Morrissey route there.
Yeah, kind of. It did kind of strike me that was kind of the kind of shit that he was into. But yeah, so all of this time that he was doing all this, and as I said, he seemed to be pretty popular around the clubs and stuff, but he was still doing it's not like he was going to get a job or anything like that. So he was doing scams all the time, like, robbing places, robbing jewelry stores, pulling scams on people, shit like that. And every now and then he would get caught and spend some time in prison. Now, in 1964, he was actually arrested for like a jewel heist type of thing, or like robbing a jewelry store. And he was given 10 years. So he goes to prison and he was in there like almost that whole entire time. Now, he got sent to Blundeston prison in Suffolk, and he actually escaped from there and was out for a little while. But they caught him again in 1966, and because he escaped, they added another 5 years on top of his 10-year sentence for escaping. I don't know.
Okay, because I'm not online, but it may just be this tablet.
Yeah, I mean that's happened before.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, if we're still on, let us know. It looks like we're still on.
Okay.
I'm not losing anything.
No, it says I'm offline here.
Oh shit.
Maybe it's just my tablet.
Yeah, maybe.
Is anybody dropping a comment in?
Yeah, Phantom says it's okay.
Okay, all right then. It's just
me.
Yeah,
it's just you.
All right.
So yeah, so
Yeah, it's back on.
okay, so he had 10 year sentence, and then they put another 5 years on for escaping and like being out for a little while. I think he was out for a year or two, but then they caught him again. Now he got paroled in 1972, and during this time he met, I believe it was around this time that he met an Irish woman named Mary Coggle. Now she was a kind of a petty criminal, sometime prostitute. She was also known as Belfast Mary. And the two of them started a relationship. And she will also play into events later on down the line. Now, while he was in prison all that time, he didn't just rest on his laurels. Oh no. He decided that he was gonna, when he got out, he was gonna go after the big score, the big fish. And so he's like, the only way to do that is to essentially pass as kind of like a member of the aristocracy. You know what I mean? So the whole time he was in prison, he like read countless books on etiquette and comportment. He tried to get rid of his Glasgow accent, and try to have something that sounded more quote unquote refined. But he just learned all these different manners and stuff like that. Like, so he would be able to blend in with, the high flyers of society, I guess, because the easier to get in with them so he could steal their money, right? So that's what he was kind of... So, I mean, it's shitty what he did, but it's like he does have determination. I will give him that. And he is, like, willing to work for his craft, so that's something, I guess. Even though it's criminal. But yeah, he spent all that time. So, I mean, it's not like he had anything else to do, is it? But yeah, so he spent all this time learning all that kind of stuff, and apparently, like I said, got pretty good at it. So when he got out of prison in 1972, and like I said, this is early 70s, nobody could really, we didn't have the internet. I kind of feel like if you sort of showed up somewhere and looked and acted the part, then everyone was like, oh, I suppose so. And they would just like give you a job. You know what I mean? Because it turned out that, actually, I said 1972. I meant 1977. When he gets out of prison in 1977, rather, because he had gone in later, he actually went to a house, Curdleton House, in, I guess, Dumfriesshire? Not really sure how to pronounce that. And offered his services as a butler to a Lady Margaret Hudson. And she was actually the widow of Sir Austin Hudson, who was a former Conservative MP. Now, Archie apparently made such a good impression on her that, I mean, she just thought he was the bee's knees. And he had never buttled before.
He buttled.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she was like, well, you seem like a good chap. And, she said he was very polite, that he had, impeccable manners.
We studied all that protocol.
Yeah. So, like, yeah.
When he was in prison. Learned manners when he was in prison.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, when you were out there, I said, well, at least he had some determination. And he was a dedication to his craft, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though
learned to be a surgeon when he was in there. Got out and impersonated a damn surgeon. Was doing fucking heart surgery on people. It was a fake. Imagine that.
Yeah.
They said he was a great doctor. Wow. Wow.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, and I'm not saying
willpower and intelligence have
right,
a lot to do
but
with
the
it,
thing
and
about
balls.
it is that, it, and something that my grandfather always used to tell me. He told all of my mom and all of her siblings this, but he told me this too, is that, if somebody else can learn to do it, you can learn to do it too.
Yeah.
The only reason really that we have degrees and things like that, so they can kind of prove that they know how to do it. Like when you just have somebody that it's like, hey, I just read a book about it. It's like, you don't really know. Like, no, they don't really have anybody else overseeing like whether they actually learned the shit or not. That's kind of all it is.
Or we hope that they're overseeing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
Because there may be some, that can be questioned too sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fact that he shows up at this place and apparently made a really good impression on this lady, and fit in with all her friends, like nobody seemed to think anything unusual. And I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if you're the butler in a house like that, and this is the 70s, this isn't like Downton Abbey kind of shit. When the fuck was Downton Abbey set? But when I think about people like households with butlers and stuff, I always think about like late 19th century or early 20th century. You don't really think about people having butlers in the 70s, but I guess they did. Well, she did anyway. But I guess the butler is kind of like, he just runs your household, kind of like a household manager type situation, right? It's gonna be like, can he hire and fire people and like the groundskeeper and whatnot?
The butler just runs your house like it's business.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
It's not just a house. You should have like a mansion and an estate around it.
Because he manages the staff and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
Hire
Right?
and fire staff, run things, purchasing, ingoing and outgoing, shipping and receiving, all that.
Yeah,
Just like a place that's
keeping
a
track of all your social engagements and all that kind of crap.
Getting rid of fucked up furniture and buying more furniture for the house. They do everything.
Yeah.
A good one does. That way, the lord of the manor, he doesn't have to do anything. It's all just taken care of for him.
Wow, that sounds nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you can change the decor. If you give him the authority and the power and you have the money, he'll change the decor to make sure your shit is up to spec.
Yeah, it's like, oh, while we're away on the Amalfi Coast, why don't you just redecorate this whole entire foyer?
We're gonna have to change this room. This shit's out of style. Okay, do it. And they'll do that. And they'll hire a designer to come in and make all your shit fucking right up to right up to code, up to rich people code.
Rich people code. Oscar said I'm a self-trained gynecologist.
Yeah. Hey man.
Well, Tom is a self-professed boobologist.
Boobol, and then my fucking buddy Steven Seagal, man, he's one of the fucking greatest shiatsu practitioners. He can find lumps in breasts, fucking detect breast cancer, just by looking at you too. But he's got a feel. Yeah.
Allison says, "I have returned. I was off buttling for a moment."
Okay.
That was a joke. That was in was that in Clue? No. Like with fucking shit, what was his fucking name? He was in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Shit, what's this fuck? Why?
Oh, the dude that played that played fucking Riff Raff.
No, not Riff Raff. The one that played Frankenfurter. Why can't I remember his fucking name? Oh my god!
Fuck, he played the devil in fucking
in Legend.
Legend, yeah. You know who we're talking about.
I know you did. So for some reason I can't fucking. Tim Curry, thank you.
Curry,
Jesus Christ! Why couldn't I remember that?
Guys.
Getting old blows. I'm like having holes eaten in my brain. It's like Swiss cheese. But yeah, in Clue he played the butler at the house where everybody was getting murdered. And somebody asked him, like, what does a butler do? And he said, I buttle, sir. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was referring to.
in the old ways, a butler is a position of power.
Yeah, you were kind of like the head honcho of the household.
That's why in Django's in Chains, that's why that one butler played by fucking, what's his name? That's why he was such an asshole.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. He played a fucking great character in fucking Django in Chains. That butler, he considered him, he owned that plantation the way he saw it. Yeah.
Well, plus he had raised Leonardo DiCaprio's character too, because he'd been there for so long. So he probably thought, "This is my."
He thought he controlled him too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he was a great character. I love him in that. But yeah, so like I said, I do kind of, because of some of the stuff that kind of happened later on. Archibald Hall is kind of an idiot, but he couldn't have been that much of an idiot because he did actually blend in with the aristocracy at least enough to get like jobs as butlers, like, so he was put in a trusted position, and it seemed like people didn't. I think he did have references, but I'm pretty sure he faked them, and I don't think anybody checked. So that's kind of on them too. I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying. So he gets in to this house with Lady Margaret Hudson. Now the plan initially was to get in there, case the joint, and maybe also case the joints of like the other houses, like houses of her rich friends and stuff, and then just kind of start stealing shit. You know what I mean? He's like, this is going to be a big score. But as time went on, he's like, you know what? I kind of like this job. And he kind of liked her too. I think she was fairly elderly, but he kind of liked her. He thought she was kind of cool, and he's like, you know what? Maybe this is a good gig. Maybe I should just not steal anything and just go straight. Yeah. Like it seemed like he kind of thought about that for a while. Because he was in a good position.
Yeah, it's got a future to it. You can buttle your ass off.
you can buttle your ass off.
Yeah. If you're good, you can make a lot of money doing it.
Well, yeah, and the thing about it is that, I mean, if you get a position like that, yeah, it's hard work and shit like that, but it's like you get to live in this gorgeous fucking house.
That's Alfred from Batman.
Right.
Yeah. He was Batman's right-hand man. Batman could never be Batman without Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, Alfred is.
Alfred knew where the bodies were buried. He knew the entire fucking Wayne Empire.
Yeah.
Basically, he was the Empire. Just that he didn't have the legal right to it. It was, that was fucking Bruce's shit. He owned it.
Yeah, so I think
your butler fucking is your right-hand man.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that he realized that he had gotten to that position, and he's just like, maybe I shouldn't fuck this up.
Yeah.
So he gets in there, and like I said, he seemed to like Lady Hudson quite a bit, and maybe he felt bad about fucking her over. Although he didn't really seem to feel bad about anything later on, so I don't really know how far that went. However, a little wrinkle appears. Later in 1977, an ex-cellmate and also ex-lover of his that he from Hull prison, where he had spent some time. The guy's name was David Wright. Now he shows up at Lady Hudson's place. There are a couple of different accounts of why he showed up there. In some accounts, Hull asked him to come visit because it was his friend and he got out of prison or whatever. In other accounts, he just showed up, like he had followed Hall there, like, hey, we're gonna pull a scam, kind of thing. Because, like I said, they'd been real close in prison. So I don't know which of those is true. Whether he came there on Hall's urging just to visit, or if he came there because he's like, hey, she'll give you a job, because he knew that he just got out of prison, or if he just followed him there and it was a surprise that he turned up. I don't really know. Now, interestingly, Lady Hudson also liked David Wright immediately. Not a very good judge of character is this Lady Hudson. And she gave him a job and he was much younger at this stage than Hall was. I think Hall was, I believe, in his late 40s, early 50s around this time period, whereas David Wright was about 30. So she gave him a job as kind of like a gamekeeper, gardener, general handyman type person around the estate, right? Now, so what happens is that while David Wright is staying there, some of Lady Hudson's stuff, specifically some of her very expensive silver and a very expensive ring that she had, disappeared. Now, Hall immediately knew who had pulled this shit, and he got really mad because, as I said, he'd kind of decided that he was going to go straight. He liked this job, he liked his employer, and he didn't want anybody to fuck it up. So he confronted David, and especially after he found out that David Wright's girlfriend had the ring that David Wright had stolen. And so he talked the girlfriend into giving it back, which she did. And David Wright got real pissed off about it. And story goes that one night, David Wright helped himself to a lot of Lady Hudson's expensive champagne, got totally shit-faced, and then went into Archibald Hall's room and shot at him, but missed. Like, it went into the headboard, like, a few inches over.
Shot him when he was asleep, I guess.
Yeah, shot him while he was asleep.
Damn.
Like, he was, like, super drunk. Because he was mad that Hall had be like, hey, give the shit back. Like, had told the girlfriend to give the ring back. So...
Couldn't shoot worth shit.
Well, he was pretty schnockered, I mean, in his defense. But yeah. So there's this whole confrontation. Kind of a big argument. And Hall is eventually able to kind of chill David Wright out. Maybe by having sex with him, not really sure. I've heard accounts both ways. And then he's just like, just chill out, man. Just, go back to bed. It's all fine. But at this stage, Archibald Hall had been like, you know what? I think I'm going to need to eliminate this person because he's going to blow my shit up. He knows that my name is not Roy Fontaine. He knows that I'm not really a butler. He knows that, I'm not this aristocratic, yada, yada. He knows about my criminal record, and he's going to blow my fucking deal. So he's like, so I'm going to have to,
You gotta go.
take him out with extreme prejudice. So the next morning, I don't know if Hall just suggested this, because I would be super suspicious if I just had a fight with somebody the night before and said, hey, tell you what, let's go rabbit hunting today. Doesn't that sound like a good idea? Maybe they had planned this beforehand, or maybe it was something that they did regularly, so David Wright wasn't suspicious, because I would totally be suspicious. But he wasn't, for whatever reason. So they go out rabbit hunting on the grounds. So there are a bunch of rabbits, and David Wright is shooting at them. I don't know if he hit any. Doesn't matter. But Archibald Hall said he very strategically waited until Wright had shot at enough so he knew that the gun was empty, right? And then he's basically like behind him, and according to Hall's later account, David says something like, what a lovely day it is. And then Hall said, yeah, lovely day. Shame this is the last day you'll see.
Whoa.
Blam!
Damn.
And he just fucking shot him in the head.
What did he shoot him with? Did
I don't know. It was just like a hunting rifle type of thing.
Well, England, Scotland.
Scotland. This was London, wasn't it? Or no, this might have been Scotland. I'm not really
I'm not sure if
they kind of go back and forth between Scotland and
not
England.
sure if they can own rifles back in those days. They're probably a shotgun.
I don't know what it was.
I know they had double rifles, like a big smooth bore shotgun.
Pretty sure it had 8 shots, if that helps.
8 shots in the rifle? Okay, must have been some kind of lever action rifle.
But yeah,
maybe bolt action rifle, yeah.
So yeah, he just very coldly shot the dude in the back of the head, like he was he was aiming at a rabbit, and then he's just like pow, and he shot him. And then after he was down on the ground, he went over there and shot him a bunch more times to make sure he was dead.
8 rounds.
I think that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, probably more like 9 or 10. But I think they might be talking about a British 303, a Lee Enfield, 303 British. Probably what they're talking about. Lee Enfield rifle. There were a lot of them around Britain. I don't know if they sold. There were a lot of them here in the United States around that time. I don't know if they were selling them in England as fucking surplus back then. But you could get a Lee Enfield 303 World War II rifle for like $80. They were $100 when I was a teenager. Cheap.
Yeah.
Pretty good though. Pretty good for what it was.
Now keep in mind that this is Archibald Hall's first murder. He's been a con man, as I said, for pretty much 40 years at this point. And as far as we know, he's never killed anyone. But he just came right out the gate swinging, just very coldly, shooting his friend and former boyfriend right in the back of the fucking head. Because he thought the dude was going to give him up, and he was just like, nope, can't have that. So he just fucking shot him. So he apparently tries to dispose of the body. I mean, this is a massive estate with like huge grounds and everything. So he kind of like, I don't even know if he buried him at first. He might have just like stacked some shit on top of him, like out in the, by this little stream or a river or whatever that was like out on the grounds. But then later on, as time went on, what he would do was that he would take Lady Hudson's dog out for a walk, like every day or a couple times a day or whatever. And he would keep going by the spot to see if the dog could still smell the body decomposing. And if the dog still went over to where the body was, he's like, okay, well, I need to put more shit on top of that. So he'd like keep piling like more dirt and more rocks on top of it until he could go out and the dog didn't smell it anymore. That was how the story went. I kind of feel like, because dogs have a really, really good sense of smell, I kind of feel like probably the dog could still smell it after a while. But the dog wasn't, you know, paying attention to it anymore, is basically what they're saying. So he would do that. Now, obviously, you know, he's killed somebody and buried them out on this estate grounds. And wasn't too hard to tell Lady Hudson, oh, you know, he just got offered a job somewhere else and he just took off. You know, sorry about that. He's not super trustworthy or whatever. So not too long after this, Hall decides, so I guess this was Scotland, that he's going to go back to London. Now, I'm not sure if it was because he just wanted to get away from the heat. Like, he's like, well, I need to get as far away from my first murder as possible. I've also heard that Lady Hudson found out about his criminal record and maybe fired him, but she did apparently still give him a really, really good reference. So I don't know if she actually did fire him or if she just fired him because, you know, it was just embarrassing for her. She didn't want anybody else to find out that he had a criminal record, but she still liked him, and so she was doing him a solid. I'm not entirely sure, but for whatever reason, he left that job and went back to London. And as I said, she gave him a very, very good reference, which obviously helped him get another job in London as a butler. So this time, he gets a job at the home of an 82-year-old man named Walter Scott Elliott and his wife, Dorothy. Now, she was much younger than him. I believe he was 82, and I think she was about 60 around this time period. Now, Walter was also an MP. He was a Labour MP for Accrington from 1945 to 1950. And he came from a very aristocratic Scottish background. His wife, Dorothy, was also quite wealthy. She was actually the daughter of a very successful Indian merchant. And as I said, she was about 20-ish, 25 years younger than him. Now, they lived in a very nice house in Knightsbridge in West London, very affluent area. And the Scott Elliots also found Archibald Hall a delightful, very polite, friendly, well-mannered individual, and ended up liking him a great deal and trusting him with everything in their house, you know? So I guess after he'd done his first murder, he decides, you know what, this going straight shit is for the birds. So he looks around the Scott Elliott's house, and Walter Scott Elliott was an antique collector, so he had tons and tons of really expensive, gorgeous things in his house. So he's looking around in this house being like, okay, I think this is going to be my big score. This is going to be the last time I'm going to do this, and I can retire. You know what I mean? I'll just do this one job, and that'll be it. So
he thinks he can retire off stealing antiques?
Or however much, but I don't know what kind of antiques we're talking about. Well, there was other stuff, too, like antiques, cash, jewelry, all kind of shit in there that you could...
all that shit's hard to flip.
It is, yeah.
You'll never get what those antiques are worth on the black market. You just won't.
Yeah.
All right. To get something for an antique, if it's real valuable, you're going to have to go to an auction for it. You'll get money then. But if it's stolen, the auction won't touch it.
Yeah.
Same thing with, jewelry. Just in general, jewelry isn't worth very much used. It just isn't. Take a whole bunch of diamonds and see what you can get for them. They're not going to give you much at a pawn shop. And you go to a fucking jewelry shop, they go, nah, we got plenty of those. Because there's a huge markup on them.
Well, yeah.
They're not... Precious stones are not that precious. They brainwash people into fucking giving people diamonds for wedding gifts and shit. That's not very old. That's a new concept.
Well, yeah, De Beers did that.
Yeah. And, so it's funny, guys steal this shit, and they think they're going to get what it's worth, or what that person paid for it. Not even close. Not even close.
I mean, if you want to retire on a criminal thing, just rob a bank. At least that's cash.
Yeah.
Although that's kind of hard to get rid of, too, because of the fucking serial number.
Yeah. You can get rid of gold, but you're not going to get what it's worth in the jewelry. You might as well just fucking melt it down in a lead smelter and cast an ingot. You'll get something for that. Yeah, you'll get what gold is worth. You'll never get what the jewelry was worth, though. You know. Just saying.
You're not
going to get that rich.
They're talking about butlers in here. And Allison says, my servant is currently on the charger for later, LOL.
Oh, yes.
TMI.
Yeah.
Mine is too, as a matter of fact.
Make your teeth rattle.
It does, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allison then says, Tom, after my next drink, I too will drop trow.
Yeah. Who said that?
Allison said that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Go ahead. You and your servant, drop trow, you and your servant, just roll up. You can think of us. Buy one of our videos.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Jeffy Art says, from what I've been told, the value of jewels are more predicated on their historical value. Yeah, I kind of feel like
Yeah, but to get that, you got to go to an auction.
Right,
And you
yeah.
can't take stolen jewels to auction.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone famous. They know that they're looking for it.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
why I always kind of wondered about, I'm always fascinated by like art heists and stuff
Yeah.
like that, because it's like, look, for example, the Isabella Gardner museum heist, which I still want to do a show
Yeah.
about one of these days, because that was fascinating. I read a couple books about it, and it's just kind of like, they've still never found most of those.
Yeah.
But all of those paintings are so recognizable, and everybody in the
Kids
world knows that they're looking for those because they know because that was such a famous heist.
Yeah. Dudes that steal art and
They want it for themselves, I think.
No. Art heists involved stealing the art and basically holding it for ransom. You're trying to get the state to cough up the money, and you'll give it back. That's how you do it. They're not selling it. They're just going to basically hold it, and they want painting that is a national treasure. And they're going to use somebody who says, "Look, I don't have the painting, but I think I know who has it." You know, if you give me the money, I think I can get it for you. They're gonna do that. They'll usually arrest that guy, but he's already got that. That's already part of the plan. All right, because he wants millions. And every time they talk to him, they can't really charge him because they don't quite have enough evidence. But they'll just arrest you and say, "Look, let me go and give me a certain amount of money, and I'm pretty sure I can get that painting for you." And they let the dude go, give him the money, and he comes back with the painting.
Although that's kind of what's interesting about the Isabella Gardner heist is that nobody has ever come forward, and nobody has ever, nobody knows where the fuck those paintings are.
Well, another thing that could happen, according to the art thieves that I've listened to their interviews, is that they're a known art thief. They know collectors. They'll steal a painting for a collector and give it to him for a certain amount of money. And that collector keeps
that's
that
kind
painting.
of, that's kind of what I'm
And
thinking.
he kind of, it's his own fucking power play. And he's not a nobody. The dude who fucking stole it is like a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He's
I've got the Mona Lisa.
you would probably
bitch.
you would probably recognize his name. That's how rich that motherfucker is. You know. But he secretly got that painting.
And he just likes to gloat over
Yeah,
it.
he
That's
gloats
kind.
it.
That's kind of
Nobody else has it, and I got it.
Yeah, because something so distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there has to be another motive.
Yeah. He's got it out on an island somewhere.
You know.
He shows his fucking $3,000 a night call girl. Look what I got. I got the Mona Lisa.
And she's probably like, "Whoops."
She's like, yeah, well, so what? You know.
Well, she'd probably just think it was a fake.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably just think it was a
Yeah.
fake. It's the real one, yeah, sure. But you know what I mean?
Not stolen, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, it was stolen. It was the Mona Lisa was stolen.
Went a long time ago.
A while back. Yeah, they did eventually get
They
it
got
back.
it back, yeah.
But it
They
was
ransomed it
stolen.
back.
I don't remember how long it was gone.
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. But
Yeah.
it was stolen at one point.
You only take a piece of art to ransom it back. That's how you do
Yeah, I don't remember what the situation was there, and I don't remember how long it was gone. But they did eventually get it back. But all the Isabella Gardner stuff,
Yeah.
that they haven't got that back.
Now
in
that's
there.
in a collection somewhere.
They have no idea where those are,
Mm-hmm.
and it must have been something specific, like somebody asked because they stole very specific
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Oh no, art thieves know everything about art.
Yeah,
They know that scene, all the buyers, everything.
yeah.
You cannot get in that business if you don't know anything about art.
Well,
in the
yeah.
art world. They already know what they're going to steal. They know why they're going to steal it. They know who's fucking paid them to steal it. They know everything about it. They know everything about all the laws about it. Like the laws about art theft. How the museums run. They know everything. That's a very specific, specialized fucking cat burglary type job. And those are high-class dudes that are stealing that shit.
Well, like I
too.
said, you have to have a lot of
Yeah.
specialized knowledge.
Yeah. It's like some dude from the hood stealing that shit.
Yeah,
He's
it's not like you're just like holding up a liquor store or
Right,
something.
right. This is a fucking rich kid that knows all about it, and he could steal it. I'm saying rich kid, but he grew up with money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, regardless, and like I said, the thing about Archibald Hall is that even though he taught himself to be able to move in upper class circles, he's still kind of a working middle class kid from Glasgow, right? So it's like he walks in, sees all these antiques, all this expensive shit, and probably like his eyes pop open, and he's kind of like, yeah, I can just do this one last job, and I'll be able to retire. Like I don't have to do it anymore. So the thing about it though is he's like, okay, well, if I'm gonna do this, I need like an accomplice for whatever it was that he was planning to do, because I think he was mainly planning to rob the Scott Elliots, but I think he was also going to use their house as kind of like in the future was going to use their house as like a base of operations, like to rob other people's houses as well. So he decides he needs an accomplice for his plans. So he contacts his one-time girlfriend, Mary Coggle, Belfast Mary, and was like, hey, do you happen to know anybody that could, help me with this big heist or whatever? She's like, yeah, I got this friend that could probably help you out. So they all meet up at a pub in King's Cross. Now, the person that she introduced him to was a 39-year-old man named Michael Kiddo. Now, he was kind of also the product of sort of a broken home. He'd spent a lot of time in the foster system, like when he was growing up. Thank you very much, Zach. Just realized if you guys review Talented Mr. Ripley Monday, then this show kind of makes a great segue. Oh, yeah, shit. Yeah, we got to do that. Like I said, we were going to do it last week, but then we went and saw Maxine, so we decided to do that instead. But yeah, I still want to do Talented Mr. Ripley, though. I did write it down. So maybe we'll watch it this weekend, and because I've been wanting to rewatch that, too. It's really good. So, but yeah, thank you very much for the super chat.
Super,
yeah, thank you. So yeah, so he'd been like in and out of the foster care system, kind of also in and out of jail, but kind of like for petty shit, you know what I mean? Mostly little thefts and shit like that. He was even in the army for a little while, but he got kicked out for getting arrested for robbery, you know what I mean? So he got like a dishonorable discharge.
Motherfucker had sticky fingers, man.
He did, yeah. And he was kind of a little bit of a bum. Like he was kind of homeless, and he just kind of like wandered around the country, like just doing odd jobs here and there and staying like, couch surfing, essentially stealing shit, whatever. So, the thing about it was that even though, he had a rather long and extensive criminal history, he wasn't really what Archie had in mind, because he's like, well, I kind of wanted somebody like a little bit more experienced for like more high-end kind of shit, because this guy's just like petty crime type crap. But I kind of feel like Michael Kiddo, though, who was younger, he seemed to really look up to Archie Hall. Like he was not like his hero, but he was just kind of like, oh, he's older and wiser and shit like that. So he's like all jacked, like to get in. Yeah, we're gonna do this big heist and we'll make all this money and shit like that. Whereas it seemed like Hall was just kind of like, okay, well, I just kind of want to get this done, and this isn't my ideal candidate, but I guess beggars can't be choosers type of situation. And he's just like, basically just shut up and do what I tell you. It was that kind of situation, Now, so by some accounts, they actually did commit some kind of smaller robberies in the area just for practice, I guess. I don't know if that's true, but I did read that in a couple of different places. And then they set their sights on the big score. They're going to rob Walter and Dorothy Scott Elliott's house. Now, the plan that they were going to do is like, well, they're going to just like steal bits at a time, so in the hopes that the couple would not notice. I mean, they were both, well, Dorothy was only 60, so she wasn't elderly, but I mean, Walter was in his 80s, and they were gone a lot, shit like that. So they're just kind of like, we're just going to steal like little bit expensive stuff and just like slowly kind of, I guess, fence it or whatever. And hopefully they won't notice for like a really long time. I guess that was kind of their initial plot. However, this plan fell apart almost immediately. Now, there's a couple different accounts of how this happened, but it's all pretty similar how it ended up. In one account, Dorothy, she went away for a few days. Like, she was sick and was in the hospital or some shit like that. I don't know where she was. And in some accounts, too, like, Walter was also gone someplace. I don't know where. But in some accounts, Walter was there, but Dorothy was out. So, whatever the case, this was December 8th, 1977. Archie brings Michael Kiddo to the house to show him around and like show him the layout and show him all the shit that's in there and kind of planning like what they're gonna do. So while they're doing this, and evidently they think nobody is home, or they think that Dorothy is out and Walter is asleep and he's old and on and drugged anyway or whatever. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it'll be fine. So they're in the house kind of talking about this, that, and the other, like how they're planning this out. Unbeknownst to them, Dorothy came home like earlier than expected. And evidently they were going into Walter and Dorothy's bedroom, and Dorothy was in there, like standing in there, like, and they didn't know she was home. And basically she's like, one, what the fuck are you doing in my bedroom? Two, who the fuck is this other dude who she didn't know, like Michael? She's like, why you bring a stranger into my house? And in some accounts, like I said, Walter was asleep in the bed, you know, because he was older, and I think he had like a touch of Alzheimer's. I'm not real sure. And he was on like a lot of medication, so he was like sedated a lot of the time too. So basically, that she caught them. Like, what are you guys doing in here? In some other accounts, I heard that she actually overheard them talking about stealing shit from the house. I don't know which one is true, but the outcome of it was either Archie or Michael basically just rushed over there, knocked her over on the bed, and put a pillow over her face and suffocated her to death because they were busted. Now, in the version where Walter was just there in the bed, he apparently like wakes up, obviously, because his wife is being smothered to death, like right next to him, and they're just like, "Oh, she's just having a nightmare. Go back to sleep." You know what I mean? Because he was kind of on sedatives. Yeah. You know what I mean? And apparently, so that's what happened. In other accounts, I've heard that he was asleep upstairs and they killed her in the parlor or whatever. But she was smothered to death anyway. So there was that. Now, I guess they just kind of did this really without thinking. Obviously, because they're caught and they panicked, evidently. So now this woman, who is a very prominent member of London society, they've killed her. And they're like, well, shit. This isn't good. Like, now what are we going to do? We got to get the fuck out of here and figure out what we're going to do. So what they figured out, and Mary Coggle was in on this too. You know, the Hall's ex-girlfriend or whatever. Now, they're like, okay, well, Walter, he's kind of, you know, on all of his sedatives and stuff. He doesn't seem like real with it. So it's like, maybe if we, you know, give him his sedatives, maybe give him a little bit extra, you know, and he won't really know what's going on. And Mary, they're like, well, we can put a wig on her and put her in like Dorothy's mink coat, and she can like impersonate Dorothy. So like he won't know what's going on. Which seems like a little bit, I don't know how out of it this dude was, but apparently he was kind of out of it because he didn't really notice any of this stuff, evidently, if this is how it went down. So they're like, okay, well, it sounds like a plan. So they take Dorothy's body and they put it in the trunk of their car. And then they all get in the car, they bring Walter, and they put him in the car too. And Mary is in there with the coat and the wig and everything like that, pretending to be his wife, and like everything is fine. So the two guys drive the body, which is in the trunk, and the old guy and Mary, who's pretending to be his wife, like drive out to this cottage that they had rented, which was in Cumberland. So they did that. Now, so they're driving north, and some accounts too said that they would sometimes like stop and like make Walter like withdraw like small sums of money. I'm guessing that Mary was like talking him into doing that because she was pretending to be his wife, and I guess he didn't really twig onto it because maybe she was good at impersonating her. I don't know. Even though I'm assuming that Mary Coggle was white and Dorothy was half Indian, because I've seen pictures of her. You know, they didn't look anything alike, but yeah. So I don't know, but I think that they were kind of making him like take some money out as well. But he seemed like he wasn't entirely cognizant of what was going on. So while they're on this little hellish road trip, they find this sort of remote-ish kind of place. They take Dorothy's body out and bury it just by the side of the road. Like they just dig a grave and like, you know, kind of somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And so then they take Walter back to the cottage and left him there with Mary, still pretending to be his wife. And meanwhile, Archie and Michael drove back to the house, the Scott Elliott's house in London, and started like ransacking it and like stealing shit out of there, like stealing antiques and all this other kind of stuff that they're gonna, you know, pawn off, like fob off later on, and like try and sell them. So then they come back, they pick up Mary and Walter, and then drove back north again. And at some point, Michael and Archie are like, okay, well, we need to get rid of this old dude too. You know, this is not cool. So they pull the car over, ostensibly for like a bathroom break. And while the old guy, the accounts I heard said that while the old guy was like over there peeing by a tree or something like that, they kind of snuck up behind him and tried to strangle him with a scarf. Now, according to Hall in his autobiography, said even though this dude was 82 and had like a little bit of Alzheimer's and stuff, they're like, he fought back much more vigorously than they were expecting. And they couldn't get the job done. At which point, Hall apparently tells Michael, because they had brought, you know, like a shovel along to bury the bodies with. And he's like, why don't you just go beat him with that? And, and we'll, like, get this whole fucking shit over. It's terrible, I know, but it's just kind of like, yeah, go hit him with the shovel. So Michael or Archie, I don't know which one, they go over there and whack the dude in the head with a shovel and kill him. And then they buried him out there, like, again, in the middle of nowhere, where they just stopped for a pee break or whatever. So the kill count is up to 3 now. Now, not too long after they disposed of the 2 bodies, and we're kind of starting to try and get rid of the spoils from the house, with Archie basically posing as like an antique dealer and trying to get rid of the stuff, you know, trying to get money for it. The problem was that Mary Coggle, she had become very attached to Dorothy's very distinctive and very expensive mink coat, and she would not give it back, and she would not stop wearing it. Obviously, Archie is like, okay, well, we can't have this because you are obviously not a member of the aristocracy, like the way you talk, the way you look, stuff like that. And it's like, you going around in this very expensive mink coat, people are going to get suspicious. And it's possible, too, that somebody actually might recognize that coat as belonging to Dorothy and like, what the fuck are you doing with it? And things like that. So he's trying to tell her, it's like, look, you can't wear that everywhere. But she was just insistent that she was going to wear it everywhere. So that was this was the hill she was dying on, quite literally. She was also wearing some of Dorothy's jewelry too, which obviously wasn't a good idea. So they're basically like, okay, well, we need to get the fuck out of here then and get the hell away from everything. So they go to Cumbria and they go to this little village and they rent another cottage there. Now, Michael Kiddo and Archie Hall would kind of hang out in the pub there, but they're trying to keep it on the down low, you know what I mean? And again, Archie's telling people that he was an antique dealer, so they kept going back to London and, you know, would sell off some of the antiques that they had stolen from the Scott Elliott's house. And I don't know how much money they made from it, but, you know, but they did keep doing that. And there was, like, obviously there was staff and stuff at the house, but they said, oh, they went abroad unexpectedly. And he was the butler, so they didn't really feel any need to. They just, like, you know, they just went abroad unexpectedly, and they asked me to sell some of this stuff off, and nobody really questioned it, apparently. But, again, like, things were real tense between Archie and Mary, because she wanted to keep that coat real bad. And Archie's like, we really have to get rid of it, because if anybody sees you in it, we're going to get in big trouble. And this, you know, conflict eventually boiled over into violence. And what ended up happening, even though this isn't what he said, but this is what they found out later on, is that they got in this big fight, and he ended up whacking Mary in the head with a fireplace poker.
Oh, man.
And then either he or Michael then put a plastic bag over her head and suffocated her to death. And then the 2 men drove to, I believe they drove to Glasgow Road and dumped her body into the river, like dumped her off a bridge or whatever. Now, her body was not found for a couple of weeks. I think it was actually found on Christmas Day of 1977.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Here's a body in a river.
Wow.
Great. There was like a shepherd like walking by the river and was like, oh shit, there's like a body. Again, Merry Christmas. So yeah. Now, she was identified as Mary Coggle, pretty soon after they found the body. Although the investigation didn't really get underway in any meaningful way until like after the holidays, you know what I mean, like January of 1978. Meanwhile, Archie and Michael, just like normal ass people, went and spent the Christmas holiday with Archie's family. Isn't that festive?
Yeah.
Like, now that they've killed 4 people. And they just show up at the house like, hey, where's the Christmas goose? You know what I mean? With Santa hats or whatever. I don't know. On their fucking...
normal.
I guess. This is like... That kind of shit is like so weird to me because even like serial killers and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, they're serial killers, but they're not serial killing 24/7.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the times they're just doing regular shit. And that... I don't know, that just like weirds me out thinking about serial killers doing like regular shit, like cleaning the cat box or going to the post office.
They must have been pretty confident that they wouldn't be caught, but there wasn't anything tying these guys or that guy to these murders. There had to have been.
Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah.
Although,
I wonder what made him think they'd never catch him.
He's like I said, he seemed kind of cocky.
Yeah.
And honestly,
He didn't think that.
but he made a lot of stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about it is that, as we will see, how he got caught was just kind of like chance, really.
Well, they found the 2 people in bed though, dead, right?
No, they weren't in bed.
Where were they when he killed them? I thought.
No, they took them.
Oh, they took them. Okay.
They took them.
Okay. Yeah.
No, they only killed the woman at the house, and then they threw her in the trunk.
Okay.
And took her like way far away, and like in Scotland somewhere, and
No, I'm
like
talking about
and
the one,
buried her by the side of the road.
The one that they smothered with the pillow.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Her? Okay.
They put her in a trunk
Okay.
and drove her like real
Okay.
far, like up toward Scotland, and just
Right.
stopped on the side of a road and buried her on the side of the road. And then the old guy,
Yeah.
they took him farther than he was out on the side of the road like peeing, and they whacked him in the head with a shovel and buried him.
He didn't know his wife been killed.
No, because they had Mary impersonating her, and like I said, he was old, and they kept him kind of sedated.
Okay.
So like
He's
he
right
didn't.
along with it.
Yeah, so he didn't really know what was going on. Like
Wow.
she had his like a wig on and
Yeah.
shit like that, and was like
Yeah, but
pretending.
when they find these 2 bodies, they're going to trace them back to that house.
Right, but they didn't find them until later. That was the
Yeah,
thing.
but they're going to trace them back to that house. and
Right,
they'll
but
find out that house had a-
but we haven't got to that part of the
Yeah.
story yet. Well,
yeah,
like I
it just
said,
makes me wonder what is it they think they know about crime scene investigation that allows them to fucking sleep so soundly. If you could be linked to that house, which I guarantee they're going to be linked to that house, cops are going to be on you. You know,
well, yeah.
I don't know why you think that you got away with it. That's they just don't know how the police work, I guess.
Well, but again, like I think a lot of these type of dudes are like way too cocky for their own good. They always tend to think they're like a lot smarter than the police, but they're
Yeah.
actually really not that smart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're going to find those bodies and they say, who are these people? And they go, where do they live? Okay. Who lives in there with them?
Well, yeah.
Who are their friends with? There you go. That's how they get you.
But spoiler alert,
Yeah.
the two guys were caught before those bodies were found.
Okay, all right.
So that's what ended up happening.
All right.
Now, Mary Coggle
I don't
was
know
found.
how these bitches can get I don't know how they can get a decent night's sleep.
I guess being a sociopath must
Yeah.
be really nice.
Yeah.
And not caring about much.
Yeah, you're just, fuck, I'm going to see if they'll never catch me.
I
Man,
think sometimes they really do think they're never going to
Yeah.
get caught.
That's not how it works, bro.
No. High Desert said, was Mary still wearing the coat? I don't know. Now I'm kind of curious to know. Like,
Yeah, it'd be funny.
I'm sure they probably took the coat off her because the whole reason that they killed her was because they were mad that she was wearing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that they took it off her and got rid of it somewhere. Like if they were smart, which they're not really that smart, but I kind of feel like that was the whole crux of the argument. So I'm sure they probably did that. So yeah. So they go. So the two of them, just being fucking normal, go and spend Christmas with Archie's family. Now, while they're there, Archie meets up with his younger half-brother, Donald, who is obviously now an adult. Remember the brother that he hated that was the product of his mom's adultery? Well, Donald had also been in prison for theft and various other things. And it so happened that Donald had been in prison for being a PDF file also, which Archie claimed later he was not super happy about either, and he thought that Donald was a pervert, which, fair. So Donald had just got out of prison and was also coming home to spend Christmas with the family, which is so weird. It's just so weird. Let's all have Christmas with the family after we all get out of prison. So Donald is there at the family home, and Archie is like, this motherfucker. And Hall said later, like, one of the reasons, because it seemed like he always hated Donald, like, from the beginning, but one of the reasons he gave later in his autobiography for why he hated Donald so much later in life was that Archie did actually end up having a daughter, I believe, with his wife, who he wasn't married to that long. And the daughter's name is Caroline. And he said that it's like, well, I hated the idea of him doing something to Caroline because, Donald was a convicted PDF file. I don't know if this is true, though. Like, a lot of people that have kind of looked into it said, yeah, but he never really mentioned Caroline otherwise. Like, he didn't really seem to give a shit about her. He didn't talk about her really elsewhere in the autobiography, so maybe that's just, like, a justification he was using. But whatever the case, that was one of the reasons he gave for hating Donald so much. Another thing that he said Donald was doing was he was kind of asking too many questions about where'd you guys get this money from? Like, what's going on? I want in on it, blah, blah, blah. Now, the fact that Donald was asking them so much, it's like, hey, are you guys onto a big score? I want in on that, because he was a criminal too. And that kind of gave Archie an idea. So there's like, come back with us to our cottage and we'll, talk it all out. We'll figure something out. You can be in on our next heist or whatever. So Hall tells Donald, who also seems like kind of an idiot, our next heist involves, like, we're gonna kidnap somebody or, hold them hostage or whatever, and it'll involve, like, tying somebody up. So, can we practice on you, tying you up? Huh. And Donald's like, sure. So they tie Donald up to a chair or whatever, and then Archie gets a rag with chloroform on it and puts it over his face until he's unconscious. And then he drowned him in the bathtub.
Damn.
That was his half-brother.
Damn.
So yeah.
They always use a ruse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Serial killers do that, too. Use some kind of ruse.
But what kind of idiot falls for, hey, let's, I'm going to do this thing to this other person. I'm going to tie him to this chair and, like, put duct tape over their mouth. Yeah. Like, can I practice on you? Absolutely not.
That's not how he said it.
No, I know. But I'm just saying that's
He's like, we got to get this heist down. I'm going to fucking tie it. Look, I'm going to tie you up.
We got to practice.
We're going to see if you can get out of it. He's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's probably the lesson.
Make sure I get these knots right. See if you can get out of it. And then once he had him tied up, he gets the chloroform. What are you doing now? Well, we're going to give him chloroform. We're going to see what that's like. We're going to see how long it takes to wear off.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then he goes, okay, he's out. And then he fucking throw him in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as it turned out, I thought this was an interesting fun fact. A later autopsy would show that the chloroform had actually killed him. But actually before the drowning happened. Making as far as I know, the only chloroform murder in UK history. Because normally, like, they show you in movies and stuff, you put the rag over the mouth, they fall over right away, but it takes a while. Yeah, it doesn't, it's not immediate.
They probably left it there for a long time, too.
That's what, yeah.
They're like, we're going to keep him under for a long time, but it actually killed him. Then it threw him in the water.
Yeah, and they just, I don't know if they knew he was dead or they were just like, we just got to make sure.
Yeah.
So they threw him in the tub and drowned him.
That's an easy way to go, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, this guy...
You get real lightheaded, then you're...
this is obviously terrible, but, I mean, the brother was a PDF file, so I can't feel too bad about it. But you know what I mean. I'm just saying. Like the other people were just
And they knew,
innocent.
right? They knew
Yeah.
he was a pedophile?
Well,
Yeah.
that's what he got out of. He was in prison for that and for robbery
Yeah.
too. So he had just got out of prison and was spending Christmas at home with the family.
Bumped
Hey,
his
look,
ass off. Bumped his ass
it's our
off.
brother, the pedophile.
Okay, so what did they do with his body?
So, much like they had done with Dorothy Scott Elliott's body, they threw Donald's body in the trunk. Seems like something that you do. And then started driving north, back to Scotland.
Better have a fucking Panther car.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking.
We
Crown
make
Victoria,
jokes about...
Lincoln Grand Marquis.
Who did I, like, we were
Mercury,
talking
Grand
about,
Marquis,
we
Lincoln
were
Town Car.
showing somebody the trunk.
Yeah.
And I said something about, you can fit a lot of bodies in there. And I didn't think that they knew that I was kidding.
Yeah. Oh, you can fit five. You can fit 5 people.
You can fit a lot of people in that trunk. It's
Yeah.
massive.
Crown Victorias and Panther cars, Mercury Grand Marquis and Lincoln Town cars. The gas tank stands up and it's up against the fucking back firewall, up against the back seats. So you have a really deep trunk. That's why the cops loved it, because you could put so much equipment back there. And it carries a full-size spare. It's got a 4th wheel, a 5th wheel.
Yeah.
Same normal size.
I couldn't believe
It's
how
not
big
a-
that trunk
yeah.
was when I opened it. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah,
you can
the spare
fit so
wheel's
many
a
fucking
real
bodies
wheel.
in there?
Yeah, it's a real wheel. With real time.
I'm not a murderer. It's just that I watch so much true crime and stuff. I just think of trunks as body storage.
The Panther platform cars, everybody made that joke about how many bodies.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Like I said, I'm not the only person that makes
Yeah,
that joke. I don't
everybody's-
know why people get so offended.
And the Lincoln Town car, so that's an old gangster car right there.
Yeah. Like, you could easily fit 5 people in there. Probably 6 or 7. If
Depends on how big they are.
yeah.
It'd fit 4 Canadians, 5 Americans. Yeah, 8 Japanese. Yeah.
Tom's thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is very, very large. So Donald's body's in the trunk of I think this was the car they were in was a Ford. Is it Granada or Grenada?
Granada.
Well, yeah, see that's the
Been
thing.
a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a Ford Granada what they were driving. So they put him in the trunk and they're driving to East Lothian. But they didn't get there because the weather was like super, super shitty. There was like a snowstorm. So they had to stop part way and like get a room for the night because they couldn't go anymore. So this is January 16th, 1978. So they get to a place called North Berwick. And they get a room at a place called the Blenheim House Hotel. Now, this is interesting because had this dude that owned this hotel, whose name was Norman Wright, by the way, hadn't had a funny feeling about these two, I'm sure they would have got caught eventually because, like I said, they weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer. But I kind of feel like they might have gone on, like, killing more people.
They'd have been caught anyway.
No, that's what I just said that. But,
Yeah, because the trail of bodies that they're leaving is fresh.
Yeah.
And leads right to them. They'll figure out who did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Norman, not Norman Bates, who also owned a hotel, Norman Wright, he sees these two, and he gets kind of a bad feeling. He didn't feel like these two were obviously murderers that have a body in the trunk. I mean, that would be a little specific. But he did have a feeling. He's like, these seem like the type of dudes that would book a room and then, like, skedaddle without paying their bill. Because he had that done to him before. And he's just kind of like, I kind of have a feeling that these are these type of dudes that would do that. And he was like, thought it was super fishy. And like, he asked his wife about it. He's like, what? I don't really like the cut of their jib or whatever. And she's like, yeah, I don't really like them either. I don't trust them. She's like, maybe you should call the cops just in case. So he did. Like, they hadn't done anything.
Right.
He just thought they were suspicious. So he called the cops. Like, I don't know what he told them, but he just like, I think
guys
these
are suspicious.
Yeah, I think these dudes are suspicious, and I think they might run out on their tab or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, so the cops get there. Now, the thing that they noticed, and I know it's not like this anymore because this is like pretty old school shit, but the police noticed that their car, there was, I guess it's called a tax disc And I guess it was like a thing. I don't know if it was like a sticker or some kind of metal, but
people referred
yeah,
to it a long
like
time ago.
yeah, it was basically a thing that said
Disc on your license plate.
that you'd paid your road tax.
Yeah.
And it had your license plate number on it too.
And I think it was wired onto your license plate.
I don't know if it was though, because
British people would know.
Because one of the things, I know they don't do it anymore. It's all electronic now. But what they noticed was that the number plate, like the license plate number on the tax disc, didn't match the license plate on the car.
Yeah. It's the same thing we call it a tag. You know, license plate tag.
Yeah.
I got 2 of them today, remember? Your license plate is good throughout.
Yeah.
You know, a year. It's because you had to pay. You got to pay every year. It's the same thing. It's where the road taxes come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the story goes that that Archie had switched out the plates on the car because 3 of the numbers on the plate were 999, which is the UK emergency services number, like the UK equivalent of 911. And either he didn't like that because he was superstitious, or he thought it brought to, or he was just trying to, you know, change out the plates because he thought that would make it less, whatever. But the cops noticed the discrepancy.
Yeah.
And so they looked up the number plate and they said, this number plate is actually from a Ford Escort, and this is actually a Ford Granada. So, obviously this is not right. So they arrested them and they took them down to the station. You have to come down to the station, answer some questions.
Yeah.
Now, the cops said that they were both very chill. Like, they weren't panicking. They were totally calm, and they said that Michael Kiddo was kind of quiet, but Archibald Hall, he did all the talking, and he seemed, like, super confident. Like, he was just like, yeah, man, blah, 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 and, like, you know, everything like that. Now, while they were interviewing them, though, Archie kept getting up to go to the bathroom. Like, he would get up and go to the bathroom and then come back. And then a few minutes later, he'd get up and go to the bathroom and come back. Well, one of the times that he went to the bathroom, he didn't come back. And when they went in there, they found out that he had climbed out the fucking window and made a run for it. So, yeah, so he ran away. Meanwhile, officers from CID came to take the car, which I don't know if they towed it to the police station or if it was still at the hotel. But they went there, and while they were searching the car, they opened the trunk. And guess what was in there? A dead, naked man. Donald.
Yeah.
Still in the trunk of the car.
His half-brother.
Which I'm sure they were probably not expecting. They just thought this was like a stolen... That was like a stolen car.
He'll be all right.
And he's just like, oh, fuck me. And it's like, now, we thought it was just like a stolen car kind of situation, and now it's obviously a murder investigation.
That'd be funny, man.
So much paperwork.
Who's this? That's my brother.
Yeah.
Don't touch him.
What?
Leave my brother alone.
Well, what is he doing in here, sir? Why is he naked? I don't know why he was naked, actually. But yeah, so there's a naked dead man in the trunk. So obviously the cops are like, okay, well, this is a lot worse than what we thought. Now, meanwhile, Hall had escaped out the bathroom window of the police station. However, they did pick him up later that same day because they immediately put out whatever the UK equivalent of APB is. And I guess they set up roadblocks and shit like that. So they actually did catch him. He'd got a taxi or something like that and was trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. So they found him at one of the roadblocks, like he was in the back of the taxi, and they recognized him like pretty much right away because of his flamboyant style or whatever, because he was always like a real snappy dresser. So they found him and brought him back. Now, ever the drama king, if you want to call it that, as soon as they brought him back to the police station, he had pills on him. I don't know exactly what they were. They are calling this a suicide attempt because as soon as they brought him back into custody, he basically like swallowed all these pills, which I guess he had on him just for such occasions, and he collapsed and they took him to the hospital. Like I said, I don't really know. I don't know if it was just like fake, like he was just trying to get out of it somehow, or if it was really like a genuine attempt that he was making, like to die. But regardless, you know, he swallowed all these pills, he collapsed, they took him to the hospital, and apparently he was fine. So like I said, I don't know if they just pumped his stomach, or if they just said he just took a bunch of sugar pills or baby aspirin or whatever the fuck it was. But yeah, so he was released back into the custody of the police. Now, the first thing they charged him with, because they had only just found the body in the trunk. So like, okay, well, we don't have enough evidence yet for a murder charge, but we don't want him running the streets. So they basically arrested him and charged him with like possession of stolen items or something like that, like having to do with the stolen car, just so they could keep him in custody long enough to build a murder case against him. But once they had him arrested and had him in custody and everything like that, Archie pretty much started talking. He did confess to several of the killings, with some caveats, at least at first. For example, in the case of Dorothy Scott Elliott, both Archie and Michael blamed each other for killing her. So I don't know who it was that did it. It's basically, no, he did it. No, he did it. So there was that. And in the case of Mary Coggle, he did admit, yeah, we got into an argument about this fur coat. And he claimed, though, that the argument actually broke out on the bridge, like outside, and that she fell like over the bridge and then cracked her skull open, and then they ran away. So they wanted to make it seem like a little less cold-blooded, but later investigation would show that she was actually murdered in the cottage, and then they had taken her body and dumped it over the bridge. So there was that. Like I said, she got hit with the poker and shit like that, because they found blood. They found her blood and like bloody fingerprints and stuff like in the cottage, and they found some of the Scott Elliott stuff too, like from their house, like linens and whatnot. During further interviews with Archibald Hall, I don't know if the cops actually told Michael Kiddo this outright, but some of them did later say, they're like, well, Michael Kiddo, you're probably lucky you got arrested, because Archibald Hall was planning to bump you off next. Because he was like, well, why share the money with an accomplice? You know all this shit about me. So he was gonna be his next victim. And I believe that Archie Hall did tell the cops that, yeah, I was gonna bump him off next. So they told him, yeah, you're kind of lucky to be alive. I believe Archie also made a second attempt at suicide and was taken back to the hospital. Like, again, I don't know if he was actually doing it or if he was just being like dramatic or whatever. Now, while he was in the hospital the second time for the second attempt, he finally confessed to the cops about the first murder that he'd committed, which, if you remember, was David Wright, which his friend and lover that he had shot, you know, on the at Lady Hudson's place, and buried. That was the first murder that he committed. And he's just like, yeah, he was gonna blow my deal, and so I just fucking shot him. And there's actually audio recording of him.
Yeah, nobody was looking for him.
Talking about not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Yeah.
But
a lot of it depends on who the victim is.
Yeah.
If it's a person that doesn't have any close family connections or ties, they can come up missing and nobody even asks where they went.
Yeah, which is really sad.
Yeah. That's why a lot of those girls that have disappeared as lot lizards working on that out of those truck stops, they find them dead on the road 30 years later. They didn't even know they were missing.
Yeah, because nobody reported
Nobody reported them missing.
That's really sad.
They had small families, most of the family members gone, and the family members they did have didn't give a shit where that girl was.
Yeah, or like lost track of them a long time ago.
Yeah, lost track of them a long time ago. Because they got into the fucking drug and fucking prostitution, business basically. And the families don't really want them around because they'll rob you blind. And they're long gone, So when they don't even know they were missing.
Yeah, that always makes me really sad, like when that happens, because I've written about a lot of cases like that.
Yeah, when it comes to serial killers and mass murders, you always have to study victimology, the profiles of the victims. That's one of the reasons why some of those serial killers are so prolific. Like Gary Ridgway, he killed a shit ton of fucking girls, But they mostly weren't looking for those girls that he killed. They found the bodies, though. But had they not found those bodies along that Green River, they would have never known there was a serial killer or been trying to catch him. Most of those girls, the families weren't looking for him. Sad, but true.
It is really sad. But, you know, like you said, that's why some serial killers will target those kind of vulnerable people, because it's like no one's looking for them.
Nobody's looking for them.
You know? It's like really sad.
No family.
Yep.
Yep.
So I don't think... I mean, I guess he knew he was busted at this point, so he's like, oh, well, might as well just fucking give it all up. So even though, as far as I'm aware, no one was looking for David Wright, he did confess to that, like, while he was in the hospital. And eventually he would go on to confess to all the murders and would eventually lead the police to David Wright's body, as well as the bodies of Walter and Dorothy Scott Elliott, which had not been found yet. Like, he did confess to killing them, which he would have gotten, like you said, he would have been busted for it eventually anyway. But they hadn't found the bodies when he got caught.
Right.
So, but he did confess to killing them and showed the cops, like, where the bodies were. Like, he took them there. Now, because these murders took place in 2 separate countries, Scotland and England, they had to have trials in 2 separate countries. So, the murders committed in Scotland... goes to the High Court in Edinburgh. Now, at those trials, Michael Kiddo was convicted of murder in the case of Mary Coggle and Walter Scott Elliott, and manslaughter in the cases of Dorothy Scott Elliott and Donald Hall. Now, the conviction came down on Kiddo's 40th birthday, and as he was being led away to prison, he turned to the press bench and said, oh, well, life begins at 40.
Douche.
Pretty much, yeah. Archie, on the other hand, was convicted in both London and Edinburgh. He got convicted of 4 murders. The murder of Dorothy Scott Elliott was actually, they ordered it, it's called lie on file, which basically means that the court is saying, we know that there's enough evidence to convict you of this, but because you've already confessed and been convicted of, like, worse shit, it's not really necessary. Right, but we're acknowledging that you did that shit too, but we're not going through the whole rigmarole. Right. You know what I mean? But that's what that is. So that's, because that was the least of it, I guess, because I guess they kind of considered that manslaughter. Michael Kiddo got manslaughter for that, because they just jumped on her and smothered her. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Hall got murder, like 4 murder counts. So, in the summer of 1978, Archie Hall was given 2 life sentences, and was also given, that was in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and then he was later given 2 more life sentences for 2 more murders, Mary Coggle and Donald Hall, and that was in London. Like I said, it was 2 different countries, so they had to do 2 different trials. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Archie Hall eventually wrote an autobiography, which came out in 1999, and it's called A Perfect Gentleman. Talking about, that's so Elliot Rodger. But, yeah, talking about his life and shit that he did. And he also helped out writing a couple of other books, too. There was one called To Kill and Kill Again, The Chilling True Confessions of a Serial Killer, and The Wicked Mr. Hall. I actually tried to look. The Wicked Mr. Hall is available on Amazon. I think the Kindle was $8 or something like that. I was trying to get A Perfect Gentleman, but it looks like it's out of print. They had some, like, hardback copies of it, but they were used, and they were kind of expensive. So I didn't really get a chance to read that. As I mentioned earlier, Malcolm McDowell and a screenwriter named Peter Bellwood were wanting to make a movie about this motherfucker back in 2005, and they were looking for a director, and they were looking for funding and stuff like that, but they never got the funding, so sadly, it never got made. So Archie was in prison, went on several hunger strikes, because of course he did, and he talked a lot about not wanting to grow old in prison. I'm like, Probably should have thought of that.
He was old when he started, though.
Probably should have thought of that. Yeah. However, he did indeed grow old in prison. Yeah. He died of natural causes in prison in 2002 at the ripe old age of 78, and at the time was the oldest prisoner serving a whole life sentence at the time of his death. Michael Kiddo was eventually released from prison, and his whereabouts are unknown. So we don't know if he had his name changed or if he's still running around, or I don't really know. I was watching a thing earlier that was kind of like coming at this from like a killer couples kind of perspective, and that guy was arguing that he didn't know if Michael Kiddo would have killed anybody without Archie Hall. Like if the two of them hadn't got together, he probably
got him in trouble.
like Archie got him in trouble, even though Archie tried to blame everything on Kiddo, like saying it's like, oh well, he was the one that, you know what I mean, which might have been some projection or some shit like that. But
he didn't want to do all that jail time.
Yeah, I guess not. It's just kind of like, but I don't know, man. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
It's an interesting case.
Yeah, I found it really interesting.
Yeah, it's not real normal. It's not. It doesn't fit the normal stereotypes for a male serial killer slash mass murderer. He has his crimes are actually have a female profile to them. This is something that female poisoners do. Kill people for money or to just get them out of the way. Which is weird, because he's bi too.
Yeah.
So, who knows if hormones play a role not only in sexuality but also in the way you kill people, the motives for killing people seems to change. Gender.
He just kind of seemed like a straight up. I don't know if I'd call him a straight up psychopath, but he definitely really didn't seem. He seemed very, very focused on what he wanted, and he's just like he didn't really care who got in his way. Yeah. If somebody got in his way or fucked with him, or somebody was in the way of him getting money or whatever, he was just going to take him out. Like, and he didn't really seem to care that much about it.
And he also didn't plan it out very well.
No, obviously.
No.
I think he planned out. He seemed to be a better con man than a murderer. Yeah. Although he did go to jail a lot, like for cons and robbery and stuff, so he couldn't have been that great at it, or he wouldn't have got caught. But on the other hand, I don't know. It's because he would have eventually got caught for those murders, especially because the two. I mean, the first guy, like I said, I don't know if anybody's looking for him, but when he killed that very, very prominent wealthy couple, I mean, obviously that's going to catch up with him.
Yeah.
So he would have got caught eventually. It just seemed like he got caught because of sort of like a fluke of the hotel guy being like, I don't like the looks of them. And then the cops came and noticed the discrepancy with the number plate. And then that was how they got arrested.
It's funny how these guys don't ever study. They don't study successful killers, The successful serial killer kills random victims. There's you can't link them to him,
I mean,
just somebody he just came across. If he can make it away from the crime scene, and as long as his DNA is protected in some way, like they don't have his DNA, or he doesn't leave DNA behind, he can evade capture. If he's a professional assassin, he evades capture a different way. He's under the protection of a cartel that could help him, and he has a support network. His target is another cartel member from his own cartel or another cartel, and they don't go to the police when their people end up dying. If the body's found, the other cartels, we don't know what happened to him. They don't help the cops at all. And as long as no evidence was left behind, and usually DNA evidence left behind, and no video evidence or bad video evidence, they'll never catch that assassin. But dudes like this, I mean, they don't study the success stories and learn why that person succeeded in a mass murders or multiple murders and how they got away with it. They're not following the rules. The best ones at it, I would think, would be cartel assassins and private investigators who are operating as assassins for heads of state, and that happens in all different countries. My good army buddy, Van Vakius, ran one of the best Central and South American hit squads. They were a death squad, and they worked for South American countries, or politicians that were elected into power in those countries. and they would just be disguised as cops with a real cop car and real fucking cop clothes, real badges, and they'd arrest somebody with a fake warrant and take them out to a location where they had a grave dug, and they'd just pop them in the back of the head, cover them up, and then they'd give all the stuff back. And it would be kind of like the equivalent of a governor or a senator or something that they were working for. He's in prison, but he should be out pretty soon. And he also helped train the Mexican drug cartels and how to cut people apart. Him and his team did that. And they were international mercenaries from Germany, Poland, Russia. They were going to make a movie about him. I got him in my yearbook. I'll show you. We were in the 506 together up in Korea. You can find him online. Timothy Van Vakius. He and his team killed hundreds of people. Hundreds. And it was only 5 guys doing it, working together. And it was because they didn't leave any evidence behind. And they had state support, even though it was not legitimate, you know. But he got arrested for accepting a job from a client to assassinate a DEA agent. Now, I don't know the particulars. I don't know if it was a bad agent or if that agent maybe didn't exist and the CIA was... There was some kind of sting operation from the CIA or something. Because I think he worked for CIA also. He worked for... Because I think that... Anyway, that's how you really do it. Just look up Timothy Van Vakius. I'll get my yearbook. I'll show you. I got pictures of me and him together.
The thing about this guy
Yeah.
is that I don't think... The fact that he was in his 50s before he murdered anybody leads me to believe that he never intended to become a murderer.
Yeah, so he didn't plan for it.
He didn't really plan it.
Yeah.
I think that it just kind of... The situation came up and he's just like, I need to get rid of this person. And he's just like, in the easiest and most direct way to get rid of this person who's going to fuck up my life is just shoot them and bury them and fuck.
Yeah.
And then, like, once he did it one time... It seemed easier because I think that his whole plan initially was just to be a butler to wealthy people and just steal shit from them. I don't really think he was intending to kill people.
To be a multiple
to
murderer.
start out with, but I think as it went on, circumstances, you know, the way circumstances unfolded, it just... I think once he did it one time, which didn't have anything to do with stealing, it became easier, and he's just like, okay, well, maybe let's just do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
I don't think
felt
he...
easier. It wasn't
Yeah,
easier.
well, no, obviously,
He
but I mean...
He got caught.
Yeah.
And he was going to get caught for all of those.
But I just don't
eventually.
think that he set out to do that. I think he was just a thief, I mean, essentially, and I think that that's... And a con man, and I think that that's what he set out to do.
Yeah.
CB said, Jenny, you should do an episode on the man who just got convicted for trying to kill the British TV presenter Holly Willoughby. Yeah, I'll look that up, and we can maybe do a show about that. And, Phantom said the actor that played the demon villain in the Stephen King film Storm of the Century, Colm Fiore, I think is how you pronounce his name, looks just like this butler and could play him in the film. Yeah, now that you mention it, he does look a lot like him. Then Allison is asking us to review Velvet Goldmine, which...
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Which we've never done Velvet Goldmine.
I guess we didn't.
I might have it somewhere, now that I'm thinking about it.
It's a good movie.
Tammy says, on a happier note... I just ran outside to bring in the bird feeders and saw 2 deer at one of our apple trees. We were driving home from the club Saturday night, and there were 3 foxes running around our neighborhood. Yeah. I knew that there were foxes in Florida, but I had never seen one in all of my time living here.
They were all the same age, so
they were all running around in the road,
like, a circle. Yeah, and one of them ran across the road, and I was going real slow, and I dropped
it's like 3 in the morning.
I dropped the window and says, "Come here, boy, come here." And fucking the other one of them was looking at me. He was probably about 30 yards away, and he came forward a little bit, and the other one's going, no, don't go. Don't
talk to the people.
It's not dangerous. It's dangerous. And then then they all vanished. They were having fun, though.
Yeah, they were super cute.
Yeah, chasing each other around the yards and running across the street and going back and forth. They were just fucking going nuts.
Yeah, like I said, it was like the middle of the night, so like nobody was around.
Yeah, and our this real nice lawns here and there got little fucking garden lighting and shit, so they're frolicking around through all that shit like they're in some kind of utopia. eating out of the garbage cans. Probably.
Yeah, but it's funny because I had never ever seen... I've seen lots of other critters in Florida, but I had never seen a fox here before. Yeah. And then I saw 3 of them like on Saturday night. I thought that was so cool. Phantom says Brian Kohlberger studied killers but failed miserably. So
I don't know who that is. I forgot.
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's just kind of like reading about a thing and doing a thing is 2 different things. You know what I mean?
Well,
But it's always better to have knowledge than not.
Yeah.
Not saying people should, hey, go study and be a better serial killer.
Most of those serial killers are fucking chumps, man, and fucking I could fuck them up easy. Gary Ridgway, you can put me in a room with 5 Gary Ridgways, I'd kill all of them. Pussies. There's only one of them that fucking kind of scares me, and that's fucking the original Night Stalker. Fucking what's his name?
Joseph D'Angelo.
Yeah, Joseph D'Angelo, and he was a cop. And I think he also had Army experience. He was doing one-man commando raids on people's houses. And he would go in there, pre-planned, he'd prepare the kill zone, unload all the guns in the house, find out where everything was, and leave one of the windows unlocked so he could come in at will that later on that night. And he'd capture a married couple and sexually assault the woman and humiliate the man, and then he'd kill them both eventually. Eat all their fucking groceries. D'Angelo was a pro. He had paramilitary training and experience. You know, D'Angelo could walk around a neighborhood with a gun out and was comfortable with it, which a lot of civilians aren't like that. But I had experience with it. Me and fucking my unit over in Korea, we'd walk around in people's everything was either a yama or a fucking rice paddy or some kind of a village or a little neighborhood. And we would walk through people's backyards and climb their fences. There'd be 100 of us in a fucking Ranger file, the whole company. Go through there. Machine guns, fucking everything. I was carrying an M60, a fucking AG with us. Sometimes we'd be fucking dipping at night. And we wouldn't smoke, but sometimes we'd be chatting while we were doing it too. Climbing through people's back windows, or through their backyards with their windows there and everything. And not a single person saw us. And there'd be 100 of us. We actually would leave a trail behind us from all the footsteps and the climbing. Just guns out, fucking full uniform, the whole army walking through there. And if the next morning those people would wake up and they would fucking probably see that trail, they probably thought a bunch of ninjas had come through, didn't see or hear anything. And we weren't even being quiet. So you can get confidence around neighborhoods at night. You know, and D'Angelo had that. He'd walk around, go into people's windows with a gun in his hand, didn't care if he was spotted. You just walk around with impunity and nobody notices you. You know? And I'm sure D'Angelo was quiet when he was doing that shit like a cat burglar. Shit, we got away with that kind of shit. We weren't even being quiet. There'd be 100 of us. It was just amazing. You think if you walked around in a neighborhood with a gun out, and instantly the cops and the sirens and shit, no, nobody will even see you.
Tammy says, well, lesson number 1, don't drive around with a dead body in your trunk. I mean, yeah. I would think that would be like day one of the first things that you would learn.
Lesson number 1, don't commit murders.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that should go without saying.
If you commit a murder, you're probably not going to be able to get good sleep for the rest of your life. Unless you're a fucking pro. You kind of did it in a mission for somebody else. You had all the fucking training to know that you did get away with it. You have law enforcement, private investigation, fucking experience, and maybe you have military background and fucking combat arms, and you know, yeah, I got away with that. They'll never prove that. Then maybe you could get some sleep. But if you were out there doing half-ass shit, you'd never get a decent night's sleep. You'd always be looking over your shoulder. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it just seems like it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, I worry about little things, like, you know what I mean? Like, man, there were some parking tickets I didn't pay in Michigan back in '82. It's just the weird shit like that.
That's what I mean. See, I'm just laying there worrying about like bullshit that probably nobody even remembers or cares about.
It's probably all gone now.
And I'm just like laying there awake going, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much less being a fucking serial killer.
Yeah.
You'd have to be a fucking psychopath.
Here's the thing. You'd have fucking 4, 5, 50, 100 bodies out there. And you'd be thinking at night, one of those cases has got somebody good on them, and maybe they found something out. One of those cases will break, and go hot again. They might be cold now, but
and it happens all the time.
Be hot now. And then you're going, what if they got my DNA? And what if one of my family members did that fucking DNA, fucking, you know, DNA fucking 52 and you, or what do they call that shit?
23 and me.
23 and me. 52 and you. See, I'm fucking good with this shit. And then all of a sudden,
It's
somewhere
like
in
a
the
deck of
FBI
cards.
goes, beep, 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 beep. Oh, by the way, fucking this dude who just got his DNA done, his cousin, Tom Ross, fucking killed 5 people. And then the next thing you know, they're on you.
Yeah.
See? So I don't know how they fucking sleep. I couldn't sleep.
No.
No. I could do it overseas, maybe, with the protection of a government behind me. You know, that they're sending me after legitimate targets as some kind of fucking contractor. I could sleep sound because I know I'm outside their jurisdiction. I'd have protection. But man, you're doing it to fucking fellow American citizens, women and children and shit. No, man, they're gonna fucking they're on you, man. I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah, Tammy says they're not human. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. You really have to be. That's why it's so rare, thankfully.
Yeah. They're not human.
No, because like
they don't even care about their own. Self-preservation doesn't even. They're so fucking overly confident that they think they're never going to get caught. That I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm smarter than DNA. DNA is not real. They made that up.
Oh, you'll see how real it is.
It's gonna be shit like that. Yeah.
High Desert says, speaking of serial killers, are you going to see Longlegs? Yes, I really do want to see that. I mean, everybody's been buzzing about it, so I definitely want to see it. And Nicolas Cage is in it, which is always a fun time. Phantom brings up 10 to Midnight from 1983, which is a Charles Bronson movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've seen it. It's actually really good. I've been wanting to do it for a review one of these days. So we got to do 10 to Midnight, Velvet Goldmine, and Talented Mr. Ripley.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do those over the next 3 weeks, if I remember.
Yeah. So is that this for this case? That's the end of this case.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Just go ahead and shut it down. I'll get us something to eat.
Oh yeah, that's good. That sounds good. All right. So thank you everybody for dropping by this evening. Thank you for your super chats. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. I thought this was an interesting topic. We'll be back on Friday night for the Sidetrack show. We're going to Memento Mori on Friday night. Yep. So we're gonna be on here for a couple hours doing some pre-gaming before we go out to the goth night. So hopefully you guys can join us for that, and we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.